Hi, welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing the second part of my December wrap up. It's a couple days late, obviously, and I know you're all very anxiously awaiting my end of the year, beginning of the year content. Don't worry, all of the 2022 wrap up stuff is coming. My favorite and least favorite books of the year, and then my 2023 goals, my 2023 TBR, all of that stuff is coming in the next few days. I just have had some stuff going on, some family stuff that I've been having to deal with, and haven't really been able to find the time to film the videos. So I'm going to be doing that over the next few days, and those videos will be coming over the next week or so. Rest assured, all of that stuff is coming. But I was kind of in the mood to make a video tonight. It's kind of late already. It's like 10:30 and I obviously look like I need to go to sleep, but I figured right now would be a perfect time to film my second half of December wrap up. I filmed a mid-December wrap up in the middle of the month, obviously, where I talked about the first 7 books that I finished in December, and I was really hopeful to finish at least 6 more things at that time to wrap up my 2022 reading and meet my Goodreads goal of 100 books. And I am very happy to say that I did manage to read 6 more books. Actually, I read 7 more books, and I ended up finishing the year reading 101 things, which I'm so happy with. The second half of the month, I feel like the books that I read I liked less than the books that I read in the first half of the month. Unfortunately, it was just, I don't know, I ended the year with some not so great books, like some duds. Of course, I wish that I had read all 5-star reads ending the year, but I am glad that I did read what I did read. I got 2 or 3 things off of my physical TBR, and I read some books from the library. I read some 2022 releases that I'd been meaning to get to for the majority of the year. So I'm really happy with what I managed to read, even if I didn't end up loving everything. I'm going to talk about the books in just, whatever order. I only have a few of them here. I read a lot of them from the library or on my Kindle or listened to them as audiobooks. So I only have a couple of them here to talk about, but I'm just gonna jump into the 7 books that I ended up reading in the second half of December. Starting off, I am going to talk about Bloody Heart and Broken Vow by Sophie Lark. These are books 4 and 5 in the Brutal Birthright series. This is an adult romance, a mafia romance that I read over the course of the last couple of months in 2022, and I managed to only get to book 5. There is one more book, and I am planning on reading it in probably January. I would say that the first book in the series is still my favorite, and then probably book 2, and then maybe book 4 and 5, and then 3. I don't know what my exact ranking is. I know that number 1 is the best one in my opinion, and the rest of them have just sort of not been as good. Like I said, this series is a mafia romance series, and it's set in Chicago, and it follows the siblings of these 2 rivaling mafia families who eventually come together through various relationships. And I mean, it's fine for what it is. It's nothing spectacular, nothing to absolutely write home about, but I like it. It keeps me entertained in the moment, and I will definitely be reading book 6 and finishing off the series. And then she does have a spin-off series, I think, that's following some of the kids of the couples in this series, and I'm not sure if I want to read that too, but Sophie Lark does get really great reviews on TikTok, so maybe I should just keep going. I don't know. We'll see. Next, I'm going to talk about I'm the Girl by Courtney Summers. This is my 3rd book by Courtney Summers. I previously read and really loved both Sadie and The Project. Those were 4 or 5-star reads for me. I was really excited to read her newest release. This came out earlier this year, and it follows a girl who sort of gets involved in this situation that mirrors the Jeffrey Epstein situation. She gets drawn into this cult-like club where it's obvious that something really sinister is going on. She's always been sort of fascinated by this resort. Her mom worked for the resort, and she's always kind of had this idea about what kind of place it was, and she's always kind of dreamed of working there herself, and her mom did everything she could to keep her daughter from it. And then her mom passes away, and she's sort of on her own to deal with things, and she gets drawn into this place by the people that run it. And it's obvious from, the reader's standpoint that something is not right about this. The main character is incredibly naive and also stupid a lot of the times, and just makes really, really bad decisions. And unfortunately, I did not like this at all. I felt like both Sadie and The Project were actually doing something really cool. They were bringing certain topics, certain types of situations to light. They were really shedding light on stuff that actually happens, and while I do think that that's what she was going for with this book as well, it just really missed the mark. The main character was not the character that I wanted to be reading from in this situation. There was so much more I think she could have done with this, and I just kept getting really frustrated because the main character just kept making stupid decisions over and over and over, and not listening to the people who were very clearly telling her that she was in a bad situation. And so I don't know, I mean, it wasn't for me personally. I know that it's gotten some pretty good reviews, but I do think it has had some mixed reviews as well. So if you've read and liked Courtney Summers in the past, you might like this, but it is a toss-up because, like I said, I liked her previous 2 books, but I really did not like this one. Another 2022 release that I was really excited to read and then ended up just falling completely flat for me was Notes on an Execution by Danya Kafka. This is about a serial killer who is on death row. It's sort of pitched as this story about this man through the eyes of women that are involved or connected to him in some way, either directly to him or to the victims that he has killed. While yes, it is that, it is also really about him. I mean, it's much more about him. He has a perspective in the book. It's like a second person perspective that comes in every other chapter. So the majority of the book is from his perspective, because the other 3 perspectives you're only getting like every like 4th chapter or so. And I just found it very frustrating. It felt so surface level. I felt like there was so much that the author could have done with this book. Like, she never really goes into depth about who the characters are or why this man started killing in the first place. I feel like the way she chose to write the story made you as the reader want to, or feel like you should, empathize and sympathize with this man who killed women, but I never felt like I needed to. Like, he was a bad person and it was never explained why he was killing, so I never felt justified. Like, there was never justification for his actions. I didn't like it at all. I felt like it could have gone in a lot of different directions and been way more interesting, and it just was not for me, unfortunately. I know it's been getting really great reviews. I haven't really seen a ton of negative reviews for it, honestly, so I feel like I'm sort of the outlier here, but yeah, it was just not what I thought it was going to be, and I was incredibly disappointed by it. Next, another book that I was actually a little bit disappointed with as well was The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter by Theodore Goss. This is the first book in the Adventures of the Athena Club trilogy, which is a series that got really popular on BookTube a couple of years ago. I actually tried to read this last year, or 2021. It's 2023 now, so I tried to read this in 2021 and ended up having to just put it down because I was incredibly bored. I think I read like 50% of it and just couldn't do it anymore, so I put it down, but I always intended to come back to it. And so right at the end of the year, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna read that. I'm gonna get that off of my on pause shelf on Goodreads. And so I started it again and I read it in its entirety, and yeah, I felt very meh about it. This is about the daughters of famous like literary characters and this weird like science club that all these men were in, and how they were performing experiments on their daughters. It follows the perspectives of several people, including Mary Jekyll, who is obviously the daughter of Dr. Jekyll, and then Diana Hyde, who is the daughter of Hyde. I would say that Mary is probably the main character, and then all the other girls, they come along and join the Athena Club, and it's all about them like trying to solve mysteries. From what I understand, each book is sort of going to be a standalone mystery, and then there's like an overarching mystery about like what this club is and who these girls are and why they are like the ones that were chosen to be experimented on. But yeah, I mean, it was fine. It was really like sort of quirky and Victorian, and if you liked A Curious Beginning by Deanna Raybourn, then I think you would probably really enjoy this because it got a similar feeling, although I preferred the Veronica Spiegel book to this one by a lot. Also in this book, one of the characters is sort of writing the story of these girls, and as she's writing it, the others will sort of interject with their own thoughts about like what she's writing and how she's misremembering it, and I found that to be really overused. It was fun at first, and then it got really confusing, especially because I was listening to the audiobook. It's not always clear when we're jumping into the like asides from the other characters, and so I just felt like it was really too much. It really took me out of the story a lot of the time, and while like I said, it was fun at first and there were times where I liked those interjections, I felt like they happened far too frequently. I would say that if you're interested in reading this book, I wouldn't necessarily recommend listening to the audiobook, or maybe like have a copy of the book with you so you can sort of skip through and see where those interjections are happening, because I think that would clear up a lot of the confusion. I was able to look at the book as I was listening to it, fortunately, because I do own it. I didn't hate it, I just wish that it had happened less, you know. I will be continuing on with the series just because I do own the second and third books, but it was not a favorite. Like, it's not as great as what I thought it was going to be based on all the hype that it got in the last few years. It is what it is. I'm glad that I read it. I'm glad that I finally got it off of my TBR, off of my like on pause shelf on Goodreads. So there's that. Another one that was actually on my paused shelf and I came back to is Reputation by Lex Croucher. This is an adult historical fiction romance about a girl named Georgiana who has recently moved in with her aunt and uncle after her parents have moved to the coast for her mom's health. She gets caught up in a little bit of drama with this friend group that she meets at a party. It's sort of like Mean Girls meets historical romance, and I think it was a lot of fun. I liked the romance aspects of it. I liked that the romance actually wasn't too overpowering in the story. It's really probably more of just like a historical fiction book with a romance side plot, because the book actually tackled a lot harder topics, including sexual assault and being abandoned by your family, and a lot of things like that were discussed that I felt like are not necessarily always popular in historical romances. I think the writing was really fun. I liked all the little nods to Mean Girls. It definitely, you can tell, is a story for Mean Girls lovers because there's a lot of little like references and quotes and stuff in here. Overall, I do think it was a really fun book. I will be reading more from this author. I actually have an arc of their new book that's coming out in March. I think it's already out in the UK, but it's coming out in the US in March. And so I'm going to be reading the arc of that one probably in February and doing a review of it. Yeah, I liked this. I thought it was a lot of fun. And if you're looking for something that is a little bit different than the standard historical romance, then you should check this book out. And finally, the last book I'm going to talk about in this wrap up is probably my favorite book of the second half of December, and that was Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. This is a really buzzy book for 2022. I'm sure that if you are going to read it, you probably already have because it was very popular this year. It follows these two friends over the course of their 30-year friendship and how they came to design and put out a video game together, and sort of what happens after their video game becomes an overnight sensation. It follows the ups and downs of friendship, and it really explores the idea of your sort of like soulmate being your best friend and it not being a romantic situation at all, just being like a pure friendship love. And I thought it was really, really fantastic. I loved the characters and I loved the friendships, and I really liked pretty much everything about this book. I thought the writing was fantastic, and there were so many moments and quotes that I wish that I had a physical copy of the book to underline, because I was just like in awe of how beautiful the writing style was and how just deep the book felt. I'm not really sure what held me back in giving it 5 stars and it becoming a favorite book of the year. I just know that there was something about it when I finished that told me that it wasn't a 5-star read and that I didn't love it as much as I was hoping to. I am intending on buying it, and I am intending on reading it again at some point and hoping that I love it more the second time around. But overall, like I said, I did really enjoy it. I would recommend it if you haven't read it yet, and I'm glad that I got around to reading it in 2022. So that is my end of December wrap up. Those are the last 7 books that I read in December, the books that finished off 2022 for me. It was a really good reading year overall, and I'm really excited to share my end of year reading stats and my favorites and least favorites and all that stuff. It's gonna be a fun time over the next few days as I film and post those videos. Also, I have been filming some videos over on TikTok. It's the same username as I have on here, and I'm doing some different types of end of the year, beginning of the year content over there. So if you're interested in seeing some things that I don't think are necessarily worth a full-blown video, but I really like doing in that kind of like 3-minute TikTok time period, then I would recommend going and checking out my TikTok because I'm having a lot of fun with that right now. So shameless plug, but I don't care. Let me know down in the comments if you've read any of the books that I mentioned in this video and what you thought about them. Did you have similar or different opinions to me? I'd really love to know. Also, let me know what you read in the month of December, or maybe your favorite book that you read in December, or what was the last book you read in December? I'd really love to know that as well. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you again very soon. Bye!